Well, usually at the beginning of any webinar, we do have people joining in for initial 5 to 10 minutes or so. So I think that's just a regular thing. I'm sure we all have been attending a lot of webinars. So welcome here this evening. It is interesting to see interest in the subject of OD and change management. And I hope I will be able to justice introducing the topic for next 1.5 hours, the duration that we'll be spending together to try and share some ideas, some knowledge to discuss about it, and also address some specific Q&As that we may have. So while people join in and trying to begin with warming up in the session and in the topic, I would begin with giving a quick brief about who I am, what is my background and my credibility to speak about the topic. My name is Deep Moody. Some of you might have read my profile before registering for the workshop. I am a doctoral researcher in organization change from Ashridge Business School, London. I've done my master's in positive organization development from Case Western, and organization psychology is a topic which is pretty close to my heart. I have been dealing with it professionally and in terms of my passion and my hobby. It's just the same thing. Fortunately, I have one of those fields where my passion and my profession gets together, and I'm pretty happy about it. So what I would do is in this 60 to 90 minutes of time that we'll be sharing together, I would try and describe a quick overview about what exactly do we understand by organization development and change management. What are the different areas of it from a broad philosophical perspective to some extent. What I would also do is, as we try and step in the session, it is important to try and share a quick overview about the pattern that I intend to follow. And of course, it's digital pedagogy. We all are pretty used to using Zoom and other video conferencing softwares and applications lately. It's nothing new. We all have been doing it since quite some time. But just a quick overview, I would really love to have the video on. I understand a lot of us may have bandwidth issues, but it's always good to have the video on because we're talking to people. It just adds on a better layer of looking at someone, trying to gauge the expressions and understand how things are moving. So that really helps. Another thing is I would really love to have a good amount of conversations because I intend to look at collaborative learning. So when I speak about topics like OD and change management, we all have been working in organizations since quite some time. We all have certain decent level of understanding, expertise. We probably may not know all the jargons. We probably may not know all the academic theories and how do we relate it to the practical world. We may not know that, but then we all carry a lot of experience. So it'll be great to try and listen to everyone, try and hear from everyone, and then learn together. Learn as an entire group that we have gathered here today for the duration of the session. Another feature is we would not have anyone from the admin managing the webinar blocking everyone or setting them on mute. Let's be responsible. Whenever you want to speak, you can just unmute yourself and speak. When you just want to listen, you just stay on mute. It's just for everyone's betterment, and I'm sure we all know how it works. Feel free to use the chat box or feel free to talk to me anytime during the session. I may look at the chat after a little while. I may not be able to see it in real time basis since I'm talking, but feel free to ask questions anytime in between, and I would love to respond to any queries that you may have. Additionally, if you have any questions or queries or any technical support that you need, there is a number on the screen. You can just call up the number anytime and try and get some backend support. I'm sure somebody would be there to try and help you quickly and swiftly with it. So what I would do is, as we step into this session, I would want to elaborate a little more on the idea of collaborative learning. So I remember a story which my grandmother used to share with me during my childhood days. It was a story about six blind people trying to figure out how does an elephant look. So, if you look at the situation, the eyes for blind people are their hands. That is how they touch things, that is how they feel things, and that is how they make an image in their mind. So when we had six blind people trying to understand how does an elephant look, what they did was they tried to touch the elephant at whichever place they could. And somebody touched the leg, somebody touched the tail, somebody touched their ear, and whichever part they touched, according to them, elephant was that. Now the interesting thing is somebody thought it was like a huge fan, somebody thought it was like a rope, somebody thought it was like a tree trunk. None of them was wrong. But the idea here is nobody was completely correct. So when I refer to collaborative learning, we all do have basic understanding about what is an organization, what is organization development, what is change management. We all have lived this, but we may not know the entire picture of it. So the more we share, the more experiences we talk about, it would be really lovely to try and put all of it together and create an entire knowledge bank in this webinar itself, by which we can collaboratively put each of those flowers together in a bouquet and try and make a very nice looking bouquet. That's something what I intend to do by collaborative learning. So as I step into the topic and the session, what I would want you to do is I would want you to try and grab a piece of paper and a pen. There's a little small quick activity that we would try to do as we try and step into the topic. So I would give in a few second pause here so you can quickly go and grab a piece of paper and a pen. That would really help in the next slide. So while you do that, I would give a quick brief explanation about what we'll be doing. You would see an image being displayed on the screen. The image would have a lot of shapes, a lot of circles, triangles, square, rectangle, a lot of these shapes, hexagon, pentagon, and many such shapes is what you would see on the screen. The image would be there for close to about 30 seconds or so. And what you need to do is you need to count the number of shapes. So in that span, you need to count how many squares, how many circles, how many triangles you could count as quickly as you can. And we'll take it from there. We'll have a discussion on that and we will try and take it from there. So I am presuming a lot of us might have already grabbed a piece of paper and pen. So I would try and put out the image here on the screen. And it's going to be there for a few seconds. So I hope it works good. Please go on. All right then. So quick question over to all of you. How many squares, how many circles, how many triangles? Anyone can share. I mean, it'll be great if you can speak or you can just write in the chat. Anyone, how many circles, squares, or triangles you could count? I would want to hear from everyone. Well, I have Amruta sharing 2 squares, Priyanka saying 4 circles. That is good. I have Subrata saying 2 squares. I have one kite shape that's diamond. Yes, I get that. Amruta saying that. I have Kailash saying 4 circles. So 4 circles is the maximum I can read here. 2 squares is the maximum I can read. 2 triangles. Did you count more circles or more triangles? Did someone do that? Please do share if you did. Oh, I have someone sharing 8 circles and 4 rhombus. That is interesting. One oval, 4 circles. Yes, that is quite interesting. I'm sure there were other shapes like hexagon, pentagon, octagon, heptagon, whatever we studied in the school days. I'm sure there were more such shapes and somebody would have counted. Um, yes, I have Vijay also sharing 8 circles. I have someone sharing 2 squares, rectangle, one penta. All right. Here's another question. What's the color of the background? If someone may remember it, if someone might have noticed it. What was the color of the background? I would love to hear from you. Somebody said white, Vijay, Amruta. Disha says it was gray. Geeta also said it was white. Oh, a lot of people observed it as white, which is good. Ravindra also says it is white. Did someone else notice a different color? Or everyone's pretty much sure it was white? Anita also says it was white. Did someone notice any other color? I only see Disha noticing gray. I have Anita saying white or blue. Whoa, that's wow. These are two very different colors, but then yes, she may not be sure. Uh, I have one more question to add to this. I'm sure we all remember there was a circle inside the triangle. What color was that circle? If someone may remember. Brown, brown. Yes, orange. Oh, somebody said orange. All right. Disha said orange. There was a school bus with kids going in left or right. That's the last question. It was going left or right. The school bus. All right. Someone said left. Geeta said left, left, right. Let's just. Oh, someone said right. So again, there's a bit of confusion there. Let's just go back and look at the image and let's just try and figure out. I understand the color of the background. Well, I don't think it's white. Neither is it gray. I'm sure we may not have noticed color of the circle inside the triangle. That's too specific. I didn't ask for that. But then, yes. And which direction is the bus going? We didn't even notice that. So I'm sure that the why did this happen is pretty obvious. Why do you all think this happened? I would love to hear from you. You're counting shapes. A lot of you did a pretty decent job counting good number of shapes, but then you couldn't notice the colors. What happened? I would love to hear from everyone. What happened here? Well, the answer seems a little simple that you were focusing on counting the shapes. And yes, it was a short span, so you were pretty competitive. You were trying to focus on one thing, so the other thing got a little lost. Yeah, some that got focused on counting the shapes. Geeta, I hear you. I hear you. But did we really get so focused that we missed something as obvious as the background? I mean, of course, I understand we were counting shapes, but we were looking at the shapes at the same background. We could not even remember the color of the background. Were we really that focused? Is that how it happened? Yes, it did happen that way. I understand the time was less. I understand we were all focused on counting the shapes, but something as obvious as the background, we missed that color. That's exactly how human mind works. So, when I did this exercise for the first time, I literally had the feeling of a scene that I saw in Three Idiots movie. You remember that scene where you had these two words, rajulization and paranitrate? Har koi race mein lag gaya. Everybody got in the race. And that happens. We really missed the larger picture. Somebody wrote in the chat, we missed the larger picture. We really did not look at understanding that there is a lot beyond what we can see. There is a huge area of what we don't know that we don't know. That's something what usually comes in by accidental learning. So when I'm trying to speak about a topic as simple as organization development and change management, you'll have been living it in our lives since a long time. But have we really been missing what is so obvious? Probably we are, because we're too caught up running in the regular day-to-day race of getting things done, of getting our job responsibilities delivered. So let's just take a step back. Let's spend next 60 minutes and to try and focus on basics in terms of understanding what do others see, what do we see about a specific topic, and how do we move on with that. So this brings me to discussing the agenda of this webinar. So here are a few pointers which I intend to try and capture in this webinar. It would focus on understanding what is organization development in the first place. How is it different from strategic HR, L&D, change management? How is it so different? What are the two broad areas of dialogic and diagnostic OD? And we would also try and look at something called as images of organization. That's one of the ways of looking at diagnosing an organization, probably from a dialogic perspective. So that's broadly what we would try and look at in this duration that we are going to spend. So what I would do is I have a very basic, simple question when I try and step into this topic. What is an organization? A simple Google search or any other internet search would give us the definition as an organized group of people with a particular purpose. Well, I understand that. We all understand that. So what is the definition of organization in your understanding? What do you think is organization? I would love to hear from everyone. Uh, well, I have someone writing it's complex strategy to change organization. Of course, yeah, I think we're referring to the earlier slide of what is OD. We will definitely speak more about OD as a topic. But to begin with, let's understand what is an organization. Give me your opinion. What is your understanding? It's a common place to work, is what Geeta shares. I agree, it is. It is group of people who come together to achieve a common goal. Yes, group of people working towards a common goal. So we all understand that that's what we do in a formal structure, in an organization making money, businesses. or probably even non-profit organizations. We call them as NGOs, non-governmental organizations or non-profit organizations. Well, there's somebody saying individual, group, make organization structure, people coming together to achieve a common goal. I agree. I understand that. And we all have pretty clear picture of a formal organization in our minds. Now, let me try and ask a question which goes a little beyond that. Would you call a group of friends planning a picnic an organization? Would you do that? I would want to hear your opinion. What is your understanding about it? Uh, well, Geeta says no. I understand, Geeta. Well, I have Tisha sharing no. Think about this. The definition says an organized group of people working towards a purpose. Now, if I'm to look at a group of friends, we all have specific friends playing specific role when they're planning to plan a picnic. They have a common goal called they need to go for a picnic. And we all have friends when they're planning a picnic. Somebody manages the finances, somebody manages the travel, somebody manages the booking, somebody manages the fun activities and gets all the things needed for it. Somebody just brings people together and makes them together so that nobody really goes out. That is an organized group and they have a common purpose. So to us, it may sound very short term. What happens when the picnic gets over? As soon as the purpose gets over, an organization dissolves. Does it mean that the group of friends go away? No, they're not. They may not. They may have another purpose of staying together as friends or colleagues or belonging. That's a separate thing. But for that specific purpose, that organization dissolves. Understanding of an organization is very simple. It is an organized group of people coming together to try and achieve a purpose. As long as the purpose exists, as long as an organized group exists working towards the purpose, an organization exists. Think about this. What about a group of relatives trying to plan a wedding? Is that an organization? Of course, yes. Why not? That's what they're doing. They're coming together. They all have specific roles. They're trying to achieve a common purpose. And once the purpose is achieved, that organization dissolves. Why not? That is a simple understanding of organization. Well, I do have some comments on chat as well. I have Vijay saying yes, as they have a common objective, long-term goal with defined roles, then group is working in like an organization. Well, talking about long-term goal, how long is long? You know, we all have this basic understanding that as long as the goal is long-term, it would probably be an organization. If it's a short-term goal, it may not be an organization. But how long is long? There is no such definition of time mentioned for an organization. It is simply an organized group of people coming together for a common purpose. It can be a family. It can even be a country altogether. It is rather this webinar right now. We all have a common purpose and we all have specific roles. I have a role to speak. I have somebody managing the entire meeting as an admin, trying to orchestrate the whole meeting from the back end. I have participants here playing their role of sharing things, listening, learning. We all are an organized group of people trying to achieve a purpose. As soon as the webinar is over, probably this organization gets dissolved. That's how it is. So when we refer to studying people science, when we refer to studying organized group psychology or organization development in the larger sense, as in sync with the topic of this webinar, we're studying organizations as whole. Organizations are everywhere. So we really need to try and understand that the concepts that we would try and speak about would definitely focus a lot more on a formal organization, since it's a short time, short space, and that is the agenda of the webinar. But the concepts are also applicable to any organized group of people trying to achieve a common purpose. We definitely need to keep that in mind. I'll have a quick view at the chats. I can see, yes, goal can be short term or long term, is what Priyanka shares. Working with an organization, a team of people with shared responsibility to common goal. Yes, Ravindra, you're right. So here's what I'm trying to draw. The way we looked at discussing the topic of what is an organization, we all shared our opinion. We all are blind people trying to touch an elephant, and we all have our own understanding. Now, the more we share, the more we can really try and put the entire picture together. And that is what really is defined as collaborative learning. So what I would do is trying to step ahead on the next topic. When I refer to organizations, a simple question is, what is organization development? Now, I would approach this topic with an angle of trying to understand how is different from things that we already understand. We understand what is business HR. We understand strategic HR. We understand L&D. We understand HR operations. We already understand these terms because we've been living it since quite some time. But how is it different from OD? What is so different that we do in OD, which doesn't come in any of these? Now, when I look at a lot of job portals, Naukri, Monster, Time, Shine, a lot of these job portals, when we have open positions for people looking out for OD role, I often see OD and L&D together. I often see OD and strategic HR together. I often see OD and business HR together. Are they really in sync? So before I try and step into this topic, I would love to understand, what do we think as a group right now, as an organization right now, all of us together, what do we think is the distinction between OD and something as simple as business HR, or let's say something as simple as strategic HR? What do we think is the distinction? I would love to hear from everyone so we can really try and build upon it. What is the understanding that we all have? Feel free to talk. It's always good to talk. It's faster rather than typing, but provided you have the bandwidth and you're comfortable doing that, feel free to do that. I would love to hear from everyone. The distinction between OD and strategic HR. What is our understanding about it? I'm really looking forward for some responses. Or is it just going to be me monologue? I don't mind doing
Strategy.
that. Yeah, please go on.
Strategy. Yeah. So strategic HR is planning and planning future goals and the future course of action, whereas OD is more towards developing and changing something that is not working, and something which is there presently, which is not working, and developing on that.
I understand that, and that is an interesting perspective. A good distinction between strategic HR and OD. And there's definitely a little more to it that we'll try and speak about. But yes, that is a good understanding. I have someone writing in the chat, isn't OD at a larger platform? Yes, but how do we define a large platform? What is the understanding? What is the base that we are looking at? Is it the scope? Is it the quantity? Is it the size? Is it the multidisciplinary function across departments? What do we understand by the term of large platform? We'll speak about it in the next few minutes. Organization development, maybe long-term planning for development of organizational mission. That is pretty good, Ravindra. That is one of the accurate understandings. Definitely yes. So here's a quick example. Yes, I have Amruta writing, strategic HR leverages growth, whereas OD enhances the existing situation. I hear you. A little distinction to it is what I would try and speak about in an example here. Think about this. Think about a real estate organization that is working in a specific, operating in a specific city, one of the metro cities, and is doing pretty good. They are making good number of flats, they're selling them, they're making decent amount of profit, their EBITDA is pretty decent, they're doing a good job. So as an organization, now they decide that they would want to go to the next level. So they have a few options. If I'm to ask all of you, or if I'm to try and put my simple common sense to it, they can either expand to other cities doing the same business, or else they can stay in the same city and expand their line of business. They can decide that not just real estate construction, they would also probably step into industrial construction. They would probably step into infrastructure, into roadways and highways. They might think of doing that, or they might think of entering into a completely different business line. They might think of stepping into e-commerce just because they have good funding, they have good base. They might want to expand their business line under the entire group and step into something completely new. They might choose to do that. These are two or three good avenues of what they choose to decide to get into as an organization. So now the decision of the organization of that real estate firm at an entire holistic organizational level in terms of the next step is OD. It's developing the entire organization as a whole. Now, for example, if they decide that they want to shift to 3 other cities, they want to expand their business into 3 other cities doing the same line of business. Well, in that case, what is needed to do that? They need better manpower, they need better infrastructure, they need better IT systems, they need better finances, they need good marketing, they need a lot of other things. They need good buyers and sellers, distributors who can provide the raw material in that area, in those cities. They need all of this. So for a specific organizational goal, each department has to get strategically aligned to the OD goal. And let's remember, human resource department is just one of the departments. It is very difficult to expect human resources department to go and expand their IT infrastructure, or it is difficult to expect human resources department to go and get their marketing strategy aligned. Well, those are strategic marketing initiatives. Well, we would also need a lot of strategic finance initiatives. Where would the additional money come from? Where would those loans come from? What is a good way to borrow the money from? Which banks are good to borrow the money from? What are the collaterals you need to put in? All of these are strategic decisions for those specific departments. And all of these together work towards serving the OD goal. So when I'm referring to job roles of OD and strategic HR being put together, I would not say it's completely incorrect. I would not say that an HR person may not be able to do that at all. To try and speak a little more about what is an OD practitioner's role and what they're supposed to do in a few more minutes. But that is the big holistic picture. That is what we have consulting firms doing, EYs, the McKinseys. They help organizations develop as a whole. Whereas from a HR perspective, the focus and perspective is pretty limited to the scope of the department. Now, just because we end up implementing an amazing performance management system doesn't mean it is entirely an OD initiative. The reason why we see a lot of chaos and confusion, I'll share my personal opinion. I think that the understanding in business leaders on what to expect from OD is yet to develop, especially in a place like India. We are yet to get a lot of clarity. Me being an entrepreneur, I would hire an OD person paying a decent amount of money. But do I really know what do I expect from the OD person? What are the skills required? Or do I still keep expecting strategic HR initiatives and simply term it as OD? Now, when we speak about organizational learning, learning and development is an important aspect, but that is one of the aspects. We're not just talking about IDPs of individual learning plan. We are talking about entire organizational learning, developing skill sets of entire organization, doing competency mapping, enhancing the overall competency levels. Yes, but all of that is a part of strategic HR. And strategic HR, strategic marketing, strategic accounting, strategic financing, all of these serve in the purpose of organization development from a technical perspective. So we have a lot of models, we have a lot of theories, we have a lot of scientific methods of determining that the real estate firm which I mentioned, which next step should it take? Will it go to other cities? Should it go into other businesses? Should it go expand the existing scope? What do they need to do next as a strategic decision is organization development strategies. We have a lot of ideas like blue ocean strategy, we have game theory, we have design thinking, we have appreciative inquiry. We have many such models which try and help and guide in deciding what should be the next level. And once that organization-wide level is what is firm, is fixed at as an organizational goal, then comes each department getting strategically aligned to the organizational development goal. This is a very brief, a very broad overview, philosophical discussion about what is OD, what is organization development. Now, once we try and speak a little more, we would try to understand what is the role expected from an OD person, or how is it different from the idea of change management. Well, OD and change management are also a little different. They're not the same, although they go hand in hand, but they're pretty different. So what I would do is let me try and share a little light on this statement that OD practitioners are not experts of processes to be changed. They're experts in process of changing. So I'll elaborate this a little. So when I'm referring to an OD practitioner, is my OD practitioner supposed to be an expert in knowing everything about the industry across all departments? Well, not necessarily. I would not expect the OD practitioner to be an all-knowing person, a superhuman, who can also go and consult a telecom industry or company in telecom industry, and go and consult a company in retail, can go and consult a company in manufacturing, in any other area. Well, the idea is OD practitioners are experts in knowing the process of changing. Each organization typically always has relevant functional experts. But how do we bring all of these functional experts to the same to a table and ensure that the output is optimum? Output is in the benefit of developing the entire organization. So when I refer to OD practitioners, they are not necessarily experts in knowing what is the process to be changed, but they're experts in knowing the process of changing each of these processes. What is required? What is the right way of approaching it? What is the right way of bringing all these experts to the same table? What is the mode of not just facilitating, but even guiding the entire strategy in the right direction in terms of what's next and how do we achieve it? That's a quick, brief overview understanding of what is expected as role of an OD practitioner. Now, what I would do is I would take a few second pause here. I would quickly go to the chats and I would also give some space to try and ask any questions or any queries or any responses that you may have. I shared some understanding about how is OD different, what is the role of an OD practitioner in last 12 minutes or so that I spoke. And I would love to hear from you before I try and proceed a little ahead. So while I read the chats, yes, I see strategic HR leverages growth, whereas OD enhances existing situation. Strategy is direction. OD is building capabilities. Yes, strategy is direction. OD is building capabilities. However, it is not just building capabilities. That is a good point. It is also reaching from point A to point B. It is deciding the pathway. It is envisioning what is the point B, in which direction does it fall. That is an overall organizational development. That is a crisp understanding about it, and trying to put it in a very simplistic fashion is what I'm referring to right now. So what I would do is when I refer to the topic of, again, organization development.
Is
Yeah, please go on.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Sure, please go on.
Yeah. Is OD bigger or strategic HR bigger?
I would say organization development is at an organizational level. That is the pinnacle of everything. That is an entire organization moving towards point B from point A. Strategic HR, strategic marketing, strategic accounting, all of these help in the purpose of OD. So short answer would be yes, OD is bigger than strategic HR, but then OD is bigger than everything else. There is an entire organization developing. That is the core purpose or the core mission of the organization. I hope I answered.
So OD is also, yeah, but is OD also bigger than business strategy?
Well, I would say business strategy is a part of OD. So when I'm referring to organization development,
okay,
the entire business strategy, let's say when I refer to something as simple as how do we define the point B when the organization is at a point A, first thing is defining and understanding where is A, diagnosing the organization. Second point is defining what is plan B. And then comes business strategy in defining a path to reach from A to B. All of these three put together is OD. So we have various models for it. I did mention them a few minutes ago, and I'll speak a little more about them. We have design thinking, we have blue ocean strategy, we have game theory, we have appreciative inquiry, ICT, many such models which really help guide and take care of all these three steps: understanding point A, defining point B, and the pathway to reach there. So that is what OD is. If I did not answer your question right, please do ask a follow-up question. I would love to answer.
Right. No, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. So as I was trying to speak a little more about the topic of OD, well, an interesting idea is how is OD defined further? So change management and OD are two different areas. When I'm referring to OD, oftentimes it is looked at as a strategic decision. A real estate firm decides to go from one city to 4 cities. And how do they get all of their departments strategically aligned to it? That is organizational development. But what we also need to understand is that for carrying out each of these business strategic decisions, they all have to be implemented by people working towards it. So when I'm referring to change management is managing the change. managing the acceptance. It is not just about reducing the resistance or the apprehension towards change. It is about increasing the motivation towards it. It is about fueling the need for it. It is about having everybody aligned towards it. Because eventually all of these changes are to be brought out by the people working towards it. Dale Carnegie has an interesting quote. He said that when you're dealing with human beings, always remember you're not dealing with creatures of logic. You're dealing with creatures of emotion. So I'll give a little quick example. Let's say one of the strategic decisions in the service of an OD goal of the real estate firm going from one city to 4 cities. One of the strategic decisions is to implement ERP system to make it easier to function. I'm sure we all have gone through a lot of ERP implementations. The biggest challenge is people acceptance, people apprehension. They also need to keep doing the work that they're doing, plus do additional work of getting the backlog entries done, trying to use it in the new fashion. What would happen? How would it move on? A lot of junior level clerical jobs, people may have a lot of apprehension. Will they be able to continue with the jobs? Will an MIS person become redundant after everything is on cloud and on the ERP system? We have a lot of such emotions, a lot of anxiety. We have no clue how things are moving. We have bosses pressurizing with the deadlines, and all of these emotions play a huge role in organized group psychology. When we refer to another example of, let's say, any M&A that happens, any merger or acquisition, it is usually comparatively easier to have the technical aspects merged pretty well. The finances can get merged, the assets can get merged, the production plans get merged, the accounting gets merged, the infrastructure gets merged, the processes get merged. But people and cultural change and people adapting to the new area is usually a huge challenge. And that is when a lot of M&As fail. You can give any simple internet search and look at the reasons for failed M&As, and you would see one of the top reasons as cultural change, cultural acceptance by people. When we refer to change management, it is a very sensitive area. Well, yes, I have somebody writing through cultural change is difficult. I have Ravindra, furniture company, to enter into interior projects. Yeah, that can be one of the OD goals, Ravindra. You're right about it. But how do we manage that change? So culture is just one of the areas. But when we're referring to change management, it is about going through the entire process of change adaptation, of change acceptance. And third level is when we actually have people pushing for change, accelerated towards it. They're making the change happen. They're happy about it. They're moving in that direction. So if I'm running a 10,000 people organization, how do I ensure that I have each of my 10,000 people employee aligned towards a single goal? So, I'll give an example. I remember reading about this at one of the places. One of my professors during my study days, and I think one of the internships as well. They mentioned an interesting thing. So, I walked into an organization for a simple survey for one of the OD projects, and it was a company generating solar energy. So, we just picked up a random employee and asked, "What do you do in this organization?" And the employee said that I am helping power homes with sustainable energy. And these consultants were like, "All right, we get it. But then what are you doing in this office, in this organization here?" And he said that I am helping power homes with sustainable energy. And they were like, "Okay, we get that. But then what do you as an individual do in this organization?" And he again comes back saying that I'm helping power homes with sustainable energy. And then these guys were like, "All right, so imagine this. You go home, you try to explain to your mother, what do you do in the organization? And what would you say to her? What would you tell her? What do you do in the company?" And he again went saying that I'm helping power homes with sustainable energy. And that is amazing. This is exactly what we're talking about. Imagine the level of ownership, the level of alignment, what each of those employees have towards the purpose, towards the goal of the organization. That is an excellent example of managing change in an excellent positive fashion. So when we're referring to change management, of course, OD and change management go hand in hand. OD is immense strategy, but change management is dealing with people who are actually going to implement the changes that we are referring to. And change management in itself is a huge area of study. It is an immensely huge area of study. Of course, we need to study both of them together because we have been working towards business strategy and managing people delivering it. So they always go hand in hand. It's a dance between both these areas. But yes, we need to also recognize that these are two different areas that we're referring to. So now building on and trying to step into another area of discussion that I have in the agenda, I would try and speak a little about distinction between diagnostic and dialogic OD. So these are two broad areas of philosophical areas of approaching organizational development. Now, how are these two distinct? Let me try and give a quick understanding about how these two areas fall into place, and then probably you can, when you study a few more models of OD and change management, you would find them pretty easy to put them in one of those two boxes. So think about this when I'm referring to diagnostic OD, more or less the way the name sounds. Think of Imagine you walking into a doctor's clinic. Typically, what do we do in medical terms? We diagnose the problem. We try to understand what's not right, try to see what is not going good, and then try to fix it. Fix it either with medicines, exercise, lifestyle change, food change, in whichever fashion. We try to fix what's not right, and that's how we get things back on track, back on status quo, a healthy way of looking at things. Typically, any report that we look at, any medical report or any let's say blood report, blood sugar, blood pressure, we look at heart rate, we look at oxygen levels, we look at all of these things. A certain standard defined. If the range is not in the standard, something has to be fixed. And that's a typical way of diagnosing something. That's typically what we do in any organization. When we try and diagnose the current structure of the organization, we often use these standard practices. Think about competency mapping exercise. What we do is we diagnose the competencies in the organization which are required and which are existent. And we look at the gap. Probably that is our training need analysis, TNA, and we try and have trainings done for that. I'll speak a little more about that. Let me give an example from an alternate perspective. So the idea of diagnostic OD becomes a lot more clear. Think about this. Think about a fantasy scenario that you are pretty good at making biryani. The biryani recipe is an example and a story that I often share when I'm referring to distinction between diagnostic and dialogic OD. So think about this. You're pretty good at making biryani. Almost everybody in the office knows that you're pretty good at doing that. And one of the Friday evenings, your boss comes up to you and asks you to leave a little early so you can go home, prepare biryani, and all your colleagues, your friends would come over to your place after office and you would have a little biryani party. And you're pretty excited about it. Why not? I mean, it's a good thing. You have friends and colleagues coming over and it's a decent thing. Friday evening, so you wrap up your work a little early, 2-3 hours early, you go home, you start looking around the recipe book for making biryani. You find that recipe reads about 16 ingredients, and you go around the house, you find, let's say, about 13 of them, and you find few other things which are not on the list, but you just find 13 of them. Does that really stop you from making the biryani? I don't think so. You still go ahead and make biryani. When we look at it from a broader perspective, that is intellectual innovation, that is creativity, that is how human mind functions. We make things happen. Well, somebody did ask me once, what if there is rice missing? Well, the person had never heard about poha biryani. You can give a simple internet search for poha biryani recipe. You'll find amazing recipes. Nothing ever really stops you when you're trying to cook something, you're trying to make something so amazing. What if the biryani is so amazing that the recipe changes? Next time onwards, you don't really need those 16 ingredients. You just make it fine with those 13 and few other things. And that is pretty real. But we don't really use this innovation, this creativity very often in organizations. When we're doing competency mapping, for an example, we have a recipe, we have a fixed list of competencies defined, and we go around looking the house for the ingredients. That is our competency mapping exercises. We have surveys, we have psychometric tests, we have few other tools which we try and gauge which are the competencies which are already available with the individual, with the organization, and we look at what is the difference. Now, the difference is what we try to fix from a diagnostic perspective. From a medical diagnostic perspective, we found the problem and we fix the problem. We either train the employees, we try to implement the cultural changes by internal communication or few other means, or if the gap is too big, we replace the people. That it's not fixable, and that's the typical way of doing it. Not just in competency mapping, even from an organizational perspective. If I am to ask you, what do we need to make an organization successful? I'm sure we would have a list of about 20, 30 things. We need good finance, we need good market, we need good product, we need good marketing, we need good government laws, we need good environment, we need XYZ things. And we have an amazing list of things. I think once we have all of these things, our organization would definitely be an immense success. And that's our checklist, that's our recipe list. The moment we have something missing, we try to fix it. If we do not have a marketing strategy which is in sync with this list, we try to fix it. If we do not have policies which are in alignment, we try to fix it. And that's typically a diagnostic approach. Whereas a dialogic approach focuses a lot more on normative behavior, focuses on human creativity, it focuses on trying to make things happen. A typical distinction which clearly defines the difference between diagnostic and dialogic OG is the philosophical approach we have towards it. It is the basic question that we ask when we are trying to refer to any organizational change topic. The typical question completely changes. It changes from what do we need to make things happen to how do we make it happen with what's at hand. The entire question changes. The first question focuses on a deficit-based approach, trying to quantify and define what's missing, what is the deficit, and try and fix it. Whereas the second question focuses on the how, the innovation, the creativity, irrespective of what we have or what we do not, how do we make sure things happen? This is an immense distinction between approaches of diagnostic and dialogic OD. So what I would do is I would take a few seconds pause here. I would read the chats, and I would also want to hear from everyone either opinion or any questions that you may have on this these two specific topics of change management and diagnostic dialogic OD. So then I can try and step into something a little further on that. So I have yes, I have somebody asking a question: how to implement change management in big organizations with multiple products, that is methods for implementing. There are various methods. There are a lot of collaborative methods, right from Harris-Beckett model till appreciative inquiry, till intentional change theory, till design thinking. What truly matters is it is one thing to know all of these different models. That is the knowledge. But the wisdom comes in from knowing which model to use. I'll give an example. I'll try to elaborate this part of it. We often refer to performance management. Well, I usually speak about this during strategic performance management webinars and the workshops that I take. Think about this. We have various performance management systems. We have 360-degree, we have BSC, we have bell curve, we have many such models. Now, if I try to implement a 360-degree model in a traditional manufacturing setup, where the floor employees are used to following strict hierarchical orders. They look up to their bosses as somebody who really makes or takes away their life kind of structure. If we really try to implement a 360-degree, would it be that impactful? Would I really have those shop floor employees giving qualitative, honest feedback about the supervisors? Or will I also have supervisors taking it in the right sense and really trying to work towards it? We may not have that structure. We may not have that set because of the culture and the policies and the hierarchical structure that the organization follows. So if I'm trying to refer to different performance management systems and models, it depends upon the structure in which we're implementing. If I'm referring to different change management models, well, we might as well simply try to look at a carrot and stick. That if you really want to implement a change, just put some reward behind it in terms of people who do it, and then put a stick in terms of performance improvement plan, people who don't do it. And that is to some extent good enough to make people run. You know, another dialogue from Three Idiots: 99% marks laoge to ghadi varna chadi. That is one of the ways of managing change, driving people towards a specific direction, people motivation. But which model to use depends upon the construct, the structure. I often have a lot of people asking me, how do we deal with generation Y, generation Z? They have different needs, they have different ways of working. Well, they're just different methods of approaching. They're just different cultural setup and social construct that they understand and that they flourish on. What motivates them? It is the same with organizations. Which model will work in company A may not work in company B. When me and you as OD practitioners or change management experts, it is good to have knowledge of all different products, all different models, all different experiences on how to implement them. But as soon as we walk into an organization, it is often, I would rather say always, a mix of multiple products. It is never a single model that we use. There's always a mix of different models we try to co-create depending on the home ground strengths which are available. And that is the best way of implementing. That is where the art of change management comes into play. The science is the technical academic aspect which we learn either through studying or by experiential way, and we try and implement it. So I hope I answered the question, if not completely, at least at a broader level. If not, please do ask a follow-up question. I would love to try and address to it. So moving on to the next topic, when I'm referring to diagnostic and dialogic OD as two different means of approaching OD and organizational change, an additional important aspect what I would want to bring to notice is a topic called images of organization. Now, when I read this topic, it typically appears as a mixture of both. When I am referring to OD practitioners, when I'm referring to change management practitioners, it is often good to have a mixture of two different worlds put in the right fashion. So when I'm referring to images of organization, it refers to metaphors. So I'll elaborate on that a little. Whenever we think about any organization, typically we all have a certain image about how the organization functions. So for example, an organization A is known to pay good salaries, but they're pretty cutthroat in hiring and firing. That's an image, that's an impression. I mean, none of us might have actually worked for the organization or lived through it, but that is an image and an impression that we have about the organization. If we speak about some other organization, let's say organization B, an image that we may have is that is a place to retire. It is a place where you can actually look at hire to retire. You may not get amazing increments, but you have real good work environment, you have real good comfortable space, and that is a place that you would really want to work for a long time. And that's an image. Again, me and you might have never worked for the organization. So there was this gentleman called Gerald. He got a study, and he had these 8 different metaphors for an organization. Now, these are not the only ones. There can be a zillion more, but then these are the most prominent ones which he observed. He observed that a lot of times the structure and the way an organization processes, it is either looked at in a pretty mechanistic way. A mechanistic way is typically that we all might have observed and seen where we have specific well-defined job descriptions, where we have a blueprint defined, where they all look like specific gears. The way specific gears fit in the right place, we have an entire organizational blueprint fitting in the right space, and the whole cycle just keeps rolling. The entire machine keeps working. That is a philosophical approach towards an organization. Well, another is, let's say we look at it as an organism. Organism, a living, breathing organism. How does it function? We have each part working in its own fashion, but they all work in sync. They all work as a living organism, trying to evolve, trying to flourish, trying to go through it. It is not a mechanistic structure. It is interacting with the environment as an organism, and it is living as a whole. That is one of the ways of looking at an organization. So there are various such metaphors that we can try and look at describing an organization. What I would do is I would share one of the examples that I came across. There was a huge M&A happening, and these consultants were brought in. I'm not naming the company or the consultants right now. I'll just share the concept and the idea, what really truly happened. So it was a cultural shift, cultural change management assignment, and the consultants observed a pretty unconventional approach. What they did was, rather than conducting a standard survey, trying to understand what is the zone of the employees, what mood they are in, what is the current policy structure for both the employees, and then trying to look at a common way out, have internal communication, and have various training sessions. Before that, they did something else. They wanted to diagnose the organization from the employee's perspective. So they got employees from both these organizations in 2 separate rooms. Of course, representatives, stakeholders from each of these functions and different areas, representatives, they got them in 2 separate rooms. And then they asked them to create an image of how does their organization look or function in terms of culture, process, policies. How does it function as an entire organization? So one of them came out with one group of company group of employees from a particular company came out with an image of a navy ship where they had the admiral at the top of it, then they had those navy men towards the bottom trying to row the ship, doing the specific task function in a very organized, very specific manner. And that was the ship, that was the organization which they were working for. Another group of employees from the second organization, they came out with an image similar to a flock of birds. We all might have seen oftentimes, the flock of birds fly together, forming a specific shape. And then although they are individuals, but they all together form a specific shape and they fly together. And in that, they showed that leader was at the center. And that is typically how that organization functioned. Their processes, their way of working, their way of approaching every decision making, that is how they lived, that is how they functioned. Then what they did was they got both of these groups together in a common room, and they shared both of these images. And then the question was, well, we all understand that a navy ship and a flock of birds, they're supposed to work together. How do you see as the resultant image? Now we also need to understand that the power of influencing human motivation is immense when it comes to artistic forms, when it comes to songs, when it comes to pictures, when it comes to act. When we refer to, let's say, any huge revolution happening in any country, any, let's say, civil war happening or independence fight happening or any such huge revolution happening, we have a lot of songs coming and resonating with it. We have a lot of act plays, we have a lot of images, we have a lot of powerful artistic mechanism which drive people motivation towards the end image. And that is a real thing at work. But do we really use that in organizations when we're trying to manage change? Or do we strictly restrict ourselves to stringent policies and stringent surveys? Oftentimes we do that. But that's not what these consultants did. They got them together, they asked them to describe a resultant image. Of course, the discussion was very crucial. It was chaotic. There was some heated discussions, some good ones, some calming ones. A typical group process that every group goes to the storming, forming, norming, adjoining kind of thing. You all have learned the various different group processes. We all went through all of that. But eventually, a final image was crafted. And that image was used as their overall change management logo. It was spread across the country. It was created by them, and that is how they wanted to see the culture function. And it was much easier. So when I'm referring to images of an organization, that is one of the tools which forms diagnosis and dialogic all together. It is one of the ways of looking at an organization. There are many zillion such ways of looking at an organization from an OD and a change management perspective. So what I would also want to take a moment here to try and share is, since the scope of this webinar is pretty limited in terms of time and the space that we have, I'm only running through a lot of superficial tasks. When I typically take a little long-term workshop, I try and approach a lot more in detail about different change management theories, about people management, about organized group psychology. We also try to have a practicum where each participant's real life organization structures are taken and an OD intervention is planned for executing it more from a positive organization development perspective. I typically try and cover areas of blue ocean strategy. I try to cover areas of design thinking. These are very well known and crucial areas in topics in the term of OD and change management. We have game theory. We look at innovation curve, the change adaptation curve, which I was referring to. How do we ensure that change is not just adapted, it is also fueled towards? What are the influences? We look at the change process. We look at different models of change. Whenever we have any change happening, change can typically be defined in 4 quadrants: immediate change, or a fast change, or a long-term change, or a short-term change, what ignites the change. So we try and look at different types of changes and how do we approach. We look at people motivation, which is beyond carrot and stick. We usually use only reward and recognition or performance improvement plan. It's either a reward or a punishment, trying to drive people in an organization. But there is a lot more to human motivation. We try and capture that area. We try and look at the 4D model, 4D AI model of appreciative inquiry, We try and look at some aspects of ICT versus intentional change theory. So these are a few areas which we try to go at length when I'm referring to a little longer workshop. But then that's typically a 6-day workshop with 2 hours each. Currently on digital pedagogy is what I try to look at. So what I would do is at this point, I have almost covered up the entire agenda which I had in my mind in terms of sharing from a unidirectional perspective. I would want to open up to listen to queries, questions, any suggestions or opinion that you may have, which I can try and address to try and elaborate on the topic a little more. So I'll quickly go through the chat, and also please feel free to ask anything right now and can simply talk about it. Well, I have, yes, I don't see any specific questions additional, but then yes, anything that you may want to ask, I am right here trying to understand on the topic. I hope you found the content relatable. Again, it was from a very broad perspective, trying to touch the upper bigger areas of OD and change management and different aspects to it. But I hope you found it relatable. And to ask any questions that you may have, I'm right here. Well, again, I would truly thank everyone for being a part of this webinar. The agenda was to try and share it for about 60, 70 minutes from a directional perspective and keep the remaining time open for questions. Yes, I am around. I will be around. Yes, I have somebody asking how long is an OD process? It depends. Honestly, it depends. Yes, I got that it's OD process. It's not OS, that's the typo. So how long is an OD process? It depends. If I'm referring to something as simple as the same example which I gave, a real estate organization going from 1 city to 4 cities, that is a huge area. How quickly will the entire process get over, or will the process have definite starting or ending point? These are questions which depend on how do we define the scope, how do we define the quickness, what are the resources you can implement, how quickly you can try and gauge upon it. So there is no specific time duration for an OD process, but it completely depends on case to case basis. You can hardly ever have two separate OD processes or OD cases as the same. They're always new. That's one understanding of it. uh, I have someone, Neeta, saying this topic needs more in-depth knowledge. Of course, it is a huge area. Well, I've seen a lot of courses which go on for about 18 months, 2 years, just to try and study specific master level programs, specifically on OD and change management. I think in India, I am aware of two long-term courses. I think one of them is also offered by TIS, and there's another one by ICEPS. But yes, there is a huge immense scope. The course which I did was also for similar duration. It was a master's program in positive OD. It is a huge area. No matter how much you study, there's always more to go on for it. It is a very huge area of study. I have Ravindra asking, does employees of operational and knowledge band have any role in planning of organization development? I would say OD, as any other role, is a role which requires specific skill set which can be developed. So let me give you an analogy. If I'm referring to human resources department, can my recruitment manager also manage PMS system? Why not? There is a job role which requires specific skill set. As long as the skill set and the experience is gained, the person can definitely manage it. So if somebody was to ask me that can an HR person be an OD person, I would say yes, why not? But can an HR person only be an OD person? I would say I don't think so, because an OD role requires different level of skill set. Probably a strategic HR person does have a lot more exposure towards organizational processes and the PMS system and the SOPs and a lot of other things. But these are two separate roles. So anyone can step into an OD role as long as they have the skill set. In fact, when I did my masters, I had my cohort had people from various areas. We had a nurse, we had a pastor from church. So they were all sitting right next to me studying masters in positive organization development. Was anyone can come in from that area as long as you have the skill set and the expertise. So that's my brief understanding. If I have not answered it to your satisfaction, please do ask a follow-up question. So yes, I have Priyanka asking, why is HR department owner of OD processes? Uh, well, that's a tricky one. Tricky one because HR is often perceived to be as closest because of the operational exposure that they may have. A marketing person may not have access to all the JDs and SOPs and SLAs of different departments, the PMS and policies and all of these, which usually help organization management, that is execution of OD. But when it really comes to business strategies, it really comes to defining point A to point B, not necessarily an HR person may always have an advantage. It depends upon the right person with the right skill set. So why do they go hand in hand, especially here in India? I would say there is huge scope for awareness. As I mentioned at the beginning, if I am a business head trying to hire an OD person, do I really know what do I expect from an OD person, or am I just doing it because that's a new trend? That's a debatable topic. If I have not answered it well, please do ask a follow-up question. So, do you only do OD and change management certification? Can any HR person do OD? What different skill sets for an OD consultant? So, for the first question, well, Samsara as an organization offers certification courses in few other areas like PMS, MBTI, emotional intelligence, and few competency mapping in few other areas. You can find a lot more details on the website, and you can also have somebody reach out to you personally. But the following part of it, can any HR person do OD? What different skill sets for OD consultant? Well, I answered the first part of it. Anybody, not just HR, any person can step into OD as long as the skill sets are acquired. Skill sets in terms of understanding business as a whole, skill sets in understanding business strategy, organized group psychology from a change management perspective, and how do they go hand in hand together to achieving results of an organization. A simple experiment can be a group of friends planning a picnic, something that I spoke about an hour ago. That is an organization. How do we ensure that the organization achieves the goal in an optimal fashion? That requires a lot of OD skills. But do we specifically know the academic terms or the theoretical background, or do we know how to replicate it over and over again? How do we use different models in different setups? That is something what the knowledge and the awareness brings to our understanding and helps us gain expertise in OD and change management. That's my opinion. Well, need technical knowledge with HR. Well, HR is a department in its own. It requires its own set of skill sets. An OD person may or may not understand all of the specific labor laws, which probably an HR person does, because OD is a different skill set altogether. An OD person may not specifically understand all the little nuances of how do bank financing work, but that's okay. It's a different skill set. Uh, as I mentioned earlier, OD practitioner may not be an expert in changing the process, but is definitely an expert in the process of changing. So that's one thing that you may want to keep in mind. Well, I have Ravinder saying thank you. Thank you, Ravinder. Well, what will be total course fee if we go for all the bundle of courses offered by Samsara? I'm not the right person to speak about it right now because I often deliver the business decisions are taken by the management of the backend team. I'll definitely have someone try to reach out to you, or you can call up on the number which we mentioned, or you can see it on the website. And I'm sure all the queries would be answered promptly. I'm sure that will happen. Uh, all of required technical knowledge in strategic HR knowledge. Yes, I think there was a follow-up thing that you mentioned earlier. So I hope I have answered most of these questions satisfactorily. If I have not, please do ask a follow-up question. I would love to answer. And you can also reach out to me anytime later. The details are there on the website. You can reach out anytime later. I would love to address all the queries. So I will be here online for a few more minutes, and feel free to ask something. And I really thank you all for joining us today evening. Oh yes, I have Ali asking what tools for OD. There are various tools, as I mentioned, from diagnostic to dialogic. Uh, the closest to my heart is appreciative inquiry, but that's 4D model of appreciative inquiry. That's one of the models. There are various tools. There are various diagnostic dialogic tools. You can what I would recommend is you can pick up any book available on the internet, or just purchase any book saying Introduction to OD and Change Management. It would typically be a 300, 400, 500 pager book, but it would give you great insights about the most common use models. We have Harrison Beckett model, as I mentioned, few of them: design thinking, uh, game theory, and blue ocean. So these are the typical ones which are most proactively used lately. But there are various such models. What is important than learning the models is knowing, having the basic understanding, call it common sense, having basic understanding to the ground level of how does an organized group of people function. So that's an area which would really help learning a little more about. So, oh yeah, thank you for the great insight. Thank you, Geeta, for joining us today evening. And I'm sure it's a weekday, and after a long working hours, a lot of you have joined in. We typically do this webinar for about 2 hours, where we have separate breakout rooms and individual group discussions. But it was a weekday and post work, so we tried to squeeze it in a little and just try to keep it more of a monologue from my end. It was not too much of group discussions and collaborative learning. But then that was the call of the hour. So yes, Priyanka, thank you. Thank you very much for being here this evening. And as I said, I will be here for a few more minutes. Feel free to ask any more questions that you may have. Thank you for coming here.